We sang this song during church, and so we're going to sing it for you now.
Would you cut that out?
I did it.
Cindy called me on a afternoon and said that she'd talked to her doctor's office and she thought she may be going into labor. And so she said, John is at work and I don't know if it really is the real thing. Would you mind taking me down to Robbinsdale and having it checked out at the doctor's office? So I went over to Maple Grove and picked her up, and we drove down to Robbinsdale and went to the doctor's office. I said, Cindy, this is what a husband's supposed to do, not me. She was having cramping on the way down there. And so we enjoyed our ride down there, and she came out of the doctor's office and she said, the doctor says, sure enough, it's the real thing.
I think it was probably late morning or something like that. So she was in the hospital for several hours before things really started to happen.
That afternoon, probably by now it might be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we walked over to the hospital and she went into the labor room to get ready, and I waited in the waiting room till John came. And so then I went home, and then John was with her.
I don't know when this happened these days, but in those days, but they started to have the fathers in with the mothers who were giving birth. So I was there when my son was born. And the honest truth is, as far as I can recall, as soon as my son was born, they whisked him away. Well, we had one look at him, and she said, her last words that I heard, I don't remember any of the words, he's precious. And Daniel was whisked away. And she was whisked away 2 minutes later.
I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning. 4:01, I think, to be exact. And so we're all, we got up, we're excited about it. And I said, by the way, John, would you mind if I called the father-in-law? So he said, yeah, go ahead and you can make that call. So I did call Ed and Bernice right after 5 o'clock. And of course they were excited because they have a new grandson.
And then we didn't hear anything. There was no communication until after the son was born in the morning. I suppose it was shortly after 4 in the morning, John called and said, we have a baby boy. And so Dean and I were awake and excited for John and Cindy.
And I remember making a comment to Mary when we went to bed that night.
For some reason, I just couldn't go back to sleep. And Dean says, don't be worried, there's how many thousands of babies born all the time.
Mary was a little concerned about it. Maybe it's just because of her sister and all that. But I made the comment that there's 4 billion. There's been 4 billion mothers give birth in this world, and I remember using some large term, and I said she'll be okay.
So everything's okay. And then I got up and was going to get the kids ready for school. I was going to go on a field trip with one of them that day. And then we had another phone call from John and said that things were not going well, and that Cindy was taken to surgery.
They had told me, you better get somebody down here to help you out. And I thought, what? Is this normal? And I called Mary and she said, something's gone wrong. I'm coming right away. She was there.
And I can't remember the rest of the conversation, but when I hung up, Mary and I talked about that, and we realized if that was almost 2 hours in surgery, that's very, very unusual.
And so I told Dean I need to go down to the hospital. And so I told the kids, you get ready. And they were in like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade at that time. And I says, you get ready to go to school. Dean went to work, and I went down to the hospital in another car.
So when I got to work, I started meeting some people, and I announced that Cindy had a baby.
And I got down there, and John was in the dining room with one of the doctors, and he was explaining what happened in surgery. And it was then that I realized the gravity of the situation, that Cindy's life was maybe not going to be any longer, because she was bleeding uncontrollably in several areas of her body and her brain and other places, and the blood was clotting.
This is about 7:45 in the morning, and all of a sudden there was a lady that worked in our department that came over there and said, "Dean, you got a phone call. You need to take a phone call." So I went back and took it, and here was Mary. And I think all she said was, "Cindy died." And I just couldn't believe it.
And Dean left work right away, and of course everybody at Gamble's knew Cindy too, because she was working there, and so they were all concerned. My kids left for school, and by then the prayer chain at our church had been called, and the first house they went to pick up friends to walk to school with, they told two of my kids that Cindy had died, and my kids were astounded, never dreamt anything like that would happen, and ran to school just in horror.
I remember the first reaction when Mary was in the room and John was in the room, and I opened up the door and John was right there, and I just hugged him. I was in the room that they gave us to be in for just a couple minutes, and all of a sudden there was a phone that rang, and I thought I'd answer it, and here was my father-in-law on the line. And I remember I said, "Are you sitting down?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "She's gone." And he just wept.
At first, absolute horror. But, how do I say it? But yet the grace of God was there. It's too painful.
On November 20th, 1980, my father experienced the best and worst news of his life. The best news? He had a newborn son. And about 3 hours later, the worst news. His wife had just passed away from birth complications. That newborn, being me, turned 30 years old this year. It's very surreal to think about my birth. Nearly miraculous. Mainly because it started with death.
sure.